The year 2023 marks the 180th anniversary of the ballad. A lot of people interested in Irish music would be aware of O'Donnell Abú, but very few would know the name of the man who wrote it. This is the writer, one Michael Joseph McCann. Born in Galway on the 28th of July 1823, Michael Joseph McCann showed great promise as a young student, so much so that in 1841 Archbishop John McCain appointed him Junior Professor of History and Mathematics at County Galway's St Jarlath's College in Tuam. While at St Jarlath's, he composed Clan Connell War Song, A.D. 1597, which would later become better known as O'Donnell Abú, Abú from the Irish for forever. McCann's four-verse song was premiered on the 28th of January 1843 in the Dublin Weekly Nation. Quite an achievement for the 19-year-old who signed himself as M.J. McC. The song celebrated the victories made over English forces by Donegal's own Red Hugh O'Donnell and by Hugh O'Neill, 2nd Earl of Tyrone, during what became known as the 9 Years' War, which lasted from about 1593 to 1603. According to McCann, the second verse of his song paid homage to the clans McCann and McGuinness, those borderers brave from the banks of the Bann, who assisted O'Neill and O'Donnell in defending the pass near Portadown, a gateway to O'Neill country. The third verse, which mentions the Irish armies using hackbutt, an ancient rifle, and battlebrand to quell the invaders, tells of how in 1595 O'Neill succeeded in taking Blackwater Fort before Sir John Norris could muster his forces. It also refers to O'Donnell's victory in August 1599 over Sir Conyers Clifford at the Curlew Pass in County Roscommon. Grasp every stalwart hand, hackbutt and battlebrand, pay them well back the deep debt so long due. Norris and Clifford well can of Tyrconnell tell, onward to glory, O'Donnell Abú. While in Tuam, McCann, a fervent Irish nationalist, acted as secretary to the local branch of the Repeal Association, which sought to repeal the Act of Union between Great Britain and Ireland. His involvement with journalists affiliated to the Tuam newsroom resulted in him becoming editor of the Wexford People. After moving to Wexford Town, the Wexford Independent thought his many articles on Irish history were laced with fearless yet judicious patriotism, a complimentary but somewhat barbed description which perhaps led to his early departure from the People. In Wexford Town, McCann secured accommodation at number 3 Monk Street, and it was from there in 1859 that he co-founded and edited The Harp, followed by The Irish Harp, two short-lived history and poetry magazines, the former printed in Marlborough Street, Cork, the latter at 163 Great Britain Street in Dublin. In December 1862, he and 6 like-minded colleagues from County Wexford founded the Irish Serial Publishing Company Limited, its headquarters based at McCann's Monk Street home. This company was started, said McCann, to provide young people with real Irish history books, because, he added, our national schools ignored the existence of our national history. While immersing himself in the world of publishing, O'Donnell Abú was becoming increasingly popular at nationalist gatherings throughout Ireland. But there was a problem. To which melody should the song be sung? When first published, McCann added a note stating that his lyrics should be sung to the air of Roderick Vic Alpin Dhu, or Black-Haired Roderick of the Alpin clan. Roderick Vic Alpin Dhu became more widely known as the Boat Song, the epic lyrics of which were written by Sir Walter Scott, and appeared in Scott's Lady of the Lake, published in the spring of 1810. And it is said that soon after, the English-born musician James Sanderson set the words of Scott's Boat Song to music. Sanderson's melody would later morph into Hail to the Chief, a tune which is often used to welcome American presidents to state functions. Scott's Boat Song, an epic sterling work of literary fiction, paid homage to Scottish chieftain Roderick Dhu and marked his welcome home in triumph by the Alpin clan. Composer and musician Joseph Mazingi, of whom little is known, arranged the Scott-Sanderson Boat Song for 3 voices, so it's perhaps no surprise that when a group of young singers from Liverpool, the Emerald Minstrels, decided to include O'Donnell Abú as part of their repertoire some 50 years later, they used Sanderson's melody and Mazingi's arrangement. But as the following story will indicate, the melody was not necessarily to McCann's satisfaction. In mid-September 1864, the Emerald Minstrels were invited to stage a concert in the Long Room at the Rotundo in Parnell Square in Dublin. McCann, who just happened to be in the audience, sat perplexed as the group belted out O'Donnell Abú. One of the singers, 21-year-old Joseph Denver, who subsequently became a journalist and author, recalled many years later that, while singing in the Long Room, McCann approached them to say that he was pleased to hear them singing his song, but urged them to, quote, use the air to which it was being sung in Ireland and which he had put to it himself. We can infer from this, then, that McCann had already abandoned the idea of using the Sanderson melody and composed his own instead. O'Donnell Abú was included in a number of publications, including the Irish Songbook from 1895, the editor of which, Alfred Percival Graves, cited the lyrics as O'Donnell Abú, A-B-O-O, and the accompanying melody, written in Irish as O'Donnell Abú, and the author's name, M.J. McCann. But according to F.W. Saunders, who in 1939 contributed an article entitled O'Donnell Abú and the Royal Kent Bugle to the Irish Book Lover, McCann's words were actually sung to a tune composed way back in the early 1800s by Joseph Halliday, once a bandmaster and bugler with the Cavan Militia. This is difficult to prove, however, since Halliday's tune, unnamed, cannot be sourced. What we know for certain is, by the 1860s, when Fenianism in Ireland was growing exponentially, the authorities considered McCann's triumphalist song as seditious, even treasonous. But the indignation felt by government officials at Dublin Castle only gave extra impetus to those who sympathised with the plight of Fenian leader James Stephens. On the night of the 24th of November 1865, just hours after Stephen's escaped from Richmond jail, a group of his supporters marched around the walls of Richmond and played O'Donnell Abú at full volume. In May 1866, 3 men were arrested for singing the song in Thurles, County Tipperary, and were later released on bail of £1,000. Days later, another 3 men were arrested for the same offence near Palatine in County Carlow. Then, in May 1868, Patrick O'Connor and John Stackpole were each sentenced to 2 months' imprisonment for singing the song to the accompaniment of a concertina on Sprout Road in Neenah. The following year, the Dublin Evening Mail was outraged at the disgraceful behaviour of a male heckler who attended a ladies' choral concert at the Wexford Assembly Rooms. After the choir sang a number of solemn religious hymns, the heckler was heard to cry out, "Very good, now give us O'Donnell Abú." The more the song was outlawed, the more popular it became. In 1864, it was translated into Irish by McClue. It was also translated into at least 4 other languages, and the tune was arranged by a myriad of composers including Charles Harland Marine in 1869 and in 1870 by Richard Michael O'Shaughnessy, a celebrated musician who thought it best to change his surname to Levy. When Charles Stewart Parnell was advocating Home Rule for Ireland, and Mr. John Clarke transformed McCann's song into Parnell Abú, and in March 1912, a teetotaler from Kerry, Taig of War, rendered it as Temperance Abú. Moving on then to September 1928, when the Dublin Evening Herald went in search of an Irish national anthem, offering its readers a voting coupon on which they could write the name of their preferred choice. The paper soon narrowed down the many suggestions to just 2 titles: The Soldier's Song, words by Peter Kearney and melody by Patrick Heaney, and Michael Joseph McCann's O'Donnell Abú. The Herald also informed readers that it had just released numerous gramophone records, one featuring The Soldier's Song, the other O'Donnell Abú. And these recordings, said the editor, were to be aired by the radio stations in Dublin and Cork at 7 o'clock on the evenings of Monday, Wednesday and Friday. 4 prizes would be awarded: £20 to the winner, 10 to the runner-up, and so on. The results now in. On the 1st of October, the Herald announced that out of the total number of votes cast, 47,210, the Soldier Song had received 25,188 votes, and that O'Donnell Abú had come in a relatively close second with 22,022. Some would argue to this day that McCann's proud and rousing words and soaring melody make the Soldier Song sound almost reserved, bordering on the apologetic. So what became of Michael Joseph McCann? Well, shortly after the Irish Harp publication folded and the Irish Serial Publishing Company dissolved because of disputes between the directors, he left Wexford in 1865 and took the emigrant boat to America. He returned again to Ireland in 1875, but unable to find suitable employment, decided to live out the rest of his days in England. He married a girl whose first name was Maria, of whom little else is known. The couple lived in humble accommodation in Huxley Terrace, Leighton in East London, where Michael became somewhat of a recluse. He died in abject poverty on the 31st of January 1883 and was buried in an unmarked grave at St. Patrick's Cemetery, Leytonstone, a couple of miles from Leyton. The same plot, now identified as number 52, D plot 10, holds the remains of Maria, who died on the 12th of April 1884. Speaking of McCann's O'Donnell Abú in 1906, Reverend Patrick O'Donnell, Bishop of Raphoe, asked, "Who can count the men of our race, whom that noble war cry has roused to energy the cause of Ireland?" In August of that year, the Donegal-born bishop, assisted by the London branch of the United Irish League, raised funds to erect a Celtic cross over McCann's grave, the inscription on which read, "For God and Country and O'Donnell Abú." Proudly the note of the trumpet is sounding, loudly the war cries arise on the gale. Fleetly the steed by Loch Swelly is bound into join the thick squadrons in Samer's green vale. On every mountaineer, strangers to flight and fear, rush to the standard of dauntless red hue. Connacht and Gallagalass throng from each mountain pass on for old Erin O'Donnell Abú. Princely O'Neill to our aid is advancing, with many a chieftain and warrior clan. 1,000 proud steeds in his vanguard are prancing, the borders brave from the banks of the Bann. Many a heart shall quail under the coat of mail, deeply the merciless foeman shall rue. When on his ear shall ring, borne on the breezes swings, dear Connell's dread war cry, O'Donnell Abú. Widely o'er Desmond the wild wolf is howling, fearless the eagle sweeps over the plain. The fox in the streets of the city is prowling, and all who would scare them are banished or slain. Grasp every stalwart hand, pack blood and battle brand, pay them well back the deep debt so long due. Norris and Clifford well can loftier Connell tell, onward to glory, O'Donnell Abú. Sacred the cause that Clan Connell's defending, the altars we kneel at and homes of our sires. Ruthless the ruin the foe is extending, midnight is red with the plunderers' fires. On with O'Donnell and fight the old fight again, sons of Tyrconnell, all valiant and true. Make the bold Saxon feel, errands of vengeance steel, strike for your country, O'Donnell Abú.